For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Hurricane Helene has brought havoc across southeastern U.S., killing at least 102 people, flooding entire communities, destroying roadways and bridges, and knocking power out to nearly 2 million from Florida north to Virginia, east to Ohio. This according to poweroutage.us. Cell phone service is also down for many as officials rush to deliver supplies to communities in hard-hit North Carolina, where much of Asheville's underwater. Governor Roy Cooper calls it an unprecedented storm.
I don't know where you are. This unprecedented storm dropped from 10 to 29 inches of rain across the mountains, causing life-threatening floods and landslides.
It's not over. Forecasters say a new tropical depression in the eastern Atlantic Ocean could become a hurricane by midweek. Will Ray, director of North Carolina's Emergency Management, says conditions remain dangerous.
I want to remind all North Carolinians, roadways are damaged, there are downed power lines and unstable ground. There are still many rain-swollen rivers across the mountains, and it may take some time for the flooding to fully dissipate. We ask people not to venture into storm-affected areas.
President Joe Biden says he will visit Hurricane Helene impacted areas this week as long as it does not disrupt recovery and rescue operations. He says federal authorities are providing support. The White House said Vice President Kamala Harris will also visit as soon as possible. Climate justice activist group The Sunrise Movement said on social media Hurricane Helene is not normal, not just a tragedy, calling it a crime. Quote, fossil fuel companies have known this would happen for the last 50 years. They lied to the public and bought out our government just to make a profit, unquote. The burning of fossil fuels are a leading cause of global warming, which has made weather incidents more intense as the planet has had a near year of record-breaking heat. The Atlantic Ocean is also experiencing unprecedented heat of up to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, adding to the intensity of weather events. In Lebanon, the country is bracing for a possible ground offensive by Israeli troops after bombardments on several apartment buildings killed Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah and 6 top commanders Friday. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden called the assassination justice. NBC News is reporting Nasrallah became a target after he refused to let go of the demand for a ceasefire in Gaza. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant called the assassination of Nasrallah an important step, but not all, indicating a ground invasion while visiting troops on the border with Lebanon today, where dozens of armored vehicles and tanks are stationed. There are also tens of thousands of UN peacekeeping troops stationed in southern Lebanon called the Blue Line. Hezbollah's new leader's vowing to continue battling Israel and says is prepared for a long fight. Lebanon's prime minister caretaker is calling for an immediate ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel as the death toll from Israeli attacks on Lebanon's people surpasses 1,000. Early this morning, Israeli airstrikes in Beirut killed 45, including 3 Palestinian militants. The attacks are threatening a region already on the brink of a larger war. Israel also bombed Yemen, Syria, and Gaza. The U.S. joined them by bombing Iraq and Syria in what's being described as preemptive strikes, killing 37 people, including high-ranking leaders from ISIS. U.S. Secretary of Defense has more U.S. troops on standby for deployment. Floods and landslides in Nepal have killed at least 170 people, with 42 others missing. FSN's Ishan Garg reports.
The floods in Nepal have disrupted thousands of lives. Phone lines have been cut off, electricity supply disturbed, and road and air travel affected by the deluge. The government has roped in the army to carry out rescue operations, as dozens are still feared missing. Heavier than normal rains led to the Bagmati River flooding, which triggered floods in the Kathmandu Valley. Environmental experts say abnormal local weather conditions are partly to blame, but the wider problem of climate change is contributing to the severity of the problem. Ishan Garg, New Delhi.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump attacked Vice President Kamala Harris' mental acuity during campaign events over the weekend.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Anybody would know this.
Harris hit back while campaigning in Las Vegas.
We need a president who cares more about solving problems than playing political games and demeaning people full time.
Some Republicans have criticized Donald Trump's comments, including Republican South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, saying we should stick to the issues. Harris made her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border Friday with an appearance at Douglas, Arizona. She called for further tightening of asylum restrictions, which breaks from President Joe Biden's policies. I'm Christina Onestad, reporting for Pacifica Radio.